Hi everyone, I'm Dale Smith, aka Journo Dale, and we're here to talk about Canadian politics. It's time for some more viewer questions, and today we're going to start with Shayla from California. She asks, since a minority government is the likely result of this fall's election, is the party that wins the most seats guaranteed to form the next government? Short answer to that one is no, it's not a guarantee. The thing with our system is that the incumbent always retains being government until they actually resign. So it doesn't matter what the results are, they are still the government until they signal the intention to resign. What that leaves for in a hung parliament situation is the possibility that if they don't win the most seats, they can still try and come up with some kind of a coalition agreement or some kind of a power sharing, or even what they're terming a supply and confidence agreement, which is basically that another party will agree to support them without necessarily being cabinet like they would be in a coalition. So it leaves room for that kind of possibility. We don't know what that might look like. It's all going to depend on what the seat counts are at the end of the election. It may not even be a minority. The polls have been shifting a lot lately, so it's hard to say where we'll be. But there is no hard and fast guarantee. We've kind of talked in shorthand around that on election nights and start declaring what's going to be a majority or a minority, even though those aren't really useful terms. A government is a government regardless of whether they have the most seats or not. That's why we tend to use the term hung parliament whenever possible. So short answer is it's going to depend to see, but there is no guarantee that whoever wins the most seats is going to form that government. Our next question is from Twitter, where Patricia Treble asks, the death of Thomas Mulloy, Saskatchewan's Lieutenant Governor, raises questions about how it will affect the duties of the Crown and the government and so on. Can I talk about them, and when do you think a new Lieutenant Governor will be appointed? So this is a pretty big deal, and I'm surprised it hasn't gotten as much attention as it has. What happens when a Lieutenant Governor or Governor General, but in this case a Lieutenant Governor of a province dies in office, is that the government basically ceases to function. Because the way our system of government operates is that it's the First Minister, that being the Premier, the Prime Minister, and Cabinet who give advice to the Governor, being either the Lieutenant Governor or the Governor General, and then it's that prerogative power that is used to exercise whatever the authority is. So if it's signing an order in council, or if it's making an appointment, or if it's signing a bill into law, that all has to happen through the Lieutenant Governor or Governor General. So when the Governor General or Lieutenant Governor dies in office, it leaves a vacancy. Now, they usually have what they call an administrator, being a kind of deputy who will act in certain capacities in their absence. In Saskatchewan's case, it's generally the Chief Justice of the province. It again is similarly the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court at the federal level, although the Secretary of the Governor General has been delegated certain deputy powers. Without the actual governor in place, those powers can't be exercised by the deputy or the administrator. So that means that the government is basically paralyzed because nobody can sign off on any of these measures. This happened in Saskatchewan in, I believe it was 1978, where the Lieutenant Governor died in office, and it was the legal opinion of the Chief Justice at the time, who was the deputy in the province, and also the Department of Justice federally, that the administrator could not administer those powers. So they had to wait until a new Lieutenant Governor was appointed. What is that looking like currently? So we're in a situation where that's basically what's happening right now. When will we see a new Lieutenant Governor? That's a real open question. What we used to have under the previous government, a Vice-Regal Appointments Commission, which was a body that would basically canvass the province and create a short list for the Prime Minister to choose from when it comes to coming up with a new Lieutenant Governor. We don't have that anymore because Justin Trudeau abandoned it, and so that means that the process has become much more opaque again. We don't know what his considerations are or who he'll be thinking about choosing. And so it's kind of a black box as to when we might see that. If we still had an appointments commission, they would still have the short list to draw from, and it could have curtailed some of that time if that was the case. I mean, Malloy was appointed only last year, so it's likely that the short list would have still been useful. In this case, we're not really sure. And one would imagine that this is something that they would want to have in place before the federal election, because once we are in the caretaker period, they can't make any more appointments like this. And that's an important thing to remember. The other thing to remember is that this government has a notorious inability to conduct appointments in a timely manner. The only time they've really managed has been with Supreme Court justices. And again, they had a process in place with that, which is headed by former Prime Minister Kim Campbell, who is doing the kind of canvassing and vetting for shortlists for that. So we are kind of left in a bit of a vacuum right now. We don't know. We haven't had any indication from the government what that process is going to look like and what kind of timeline they're looking at. So the government of Saskatchewan could be getting pretty desperate pretty soon if suddenly they can't get orders in council signed or anything like that. And the last question is also from Twitter, and it comes from Stevie Nicks, as they call themselves. Can you review Andrew Scheer's Twitter posts on Twitter to confirm what he claims is true? I do this a little bit, but I do it in a fairly ad hoc capacity. People have been asking me to kind of do the Daniel Dale thing and use my spare time to do this on a regular basis. My problem is I don't have a lot of spare time. When you're a freelancer, you're kind of hustling all the time. So if we want me to do this on a more regular basis, we might have to think about doing something through Patreon and coming up with some kind of a funding model, so I'm not using what little free time I have left to kind of do this for nothing. So that's kind of my own consideration on this. Something that we can have a conversation about in the coming months as we lead up to the election. So let's give it some thought. And that's everything for this week. Join us again next week for some more Canadian politics. I'm Dale Smith. I'm at journal_Dale on Twitter. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And support us on Patreon. Thanks, everyone.